welcome to 10 Talks. Today is a day that we are just blessed to be able to have a guest, Jim Murphy, with us. And Jim and I go back a long ways, and we're here to just share the power of story and our journey, and most importantly, to give you hope. So, Jim, thank you for joining us, and thanks for just being on the team. You and I have teamed up again to serve and support, and let's just start with your story.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Yep.
My story, well, I had always dreamed about being a professional athlete since I was a little kid, as you know, and getting drafted by the Chicago Cubs was a dream come true. But as soon as I got drafted, there was all this intense pressure because my identity became Jim Murphy, professional baseball player. And I played 5 years professionally, and then I got injured and had to retire, and it was devastating. Jim Murphy, pro baseball player, became Jim Murphy nobody. And I couldn't watch baseball for several years. It just was too hard to bear, and super lost. And then I got asked to coach a high school baseball team in inner city Seattle, and I had no desire to coach and no coaching experience, and it was the most amazing experience. We didn't lose a game and had so much fun, and so I thought, oh, maybe God wanted me to be a coach instead of a player. I always thought that there's going to be something great in my destiny. I just thought it was to be a Major League Baseball player or NFL player, and never considered coaching. But after that, I thought, how do I go from coaching 16-year-olds to managing like the Yankees in the big leagues and winning the World Series? And so I came up with this like 10-year plan of getting a job in grad school. Going to grad school, getting a master's degree in phys ed, getting a job teaching PE so I can pay the bills, coaching the high school team and winning a championship, and then getting a job in college, doing the same thing, working my way up.
I love the game plan, right? You're definitely very intentional about, okay, here's the plan.
Yeah, that was the plan. And I got a job, became a personal trainer in grad school to pay the bills. And as a trainer, I started to work with this one client, and he said, he was a life coach, and he said, let's go for a job in pro baseball right out of grad school by getting to know the people that can hire you, that have that influence. And so I sent a snail mail letter to, with a stamp and everything.
Yeah, I know snail mail.
The old days, yeah. To every major league team, every major league GM, and every major league field manager, telling them I'm doing my master's paper on how to build a championship team, and I'd like to interview them for it. I did 39 interviews. I got a job with the Texas Rangers, and it was a dream come true. But I left a few months later because I just there was a lot of things going on. I wasn't able to coach, and they wanted me to just watch and put in my time, and I felt like a bird in a cage that needed to be free. And at the time, I was. It just was really a difficult time in my life where I wasn't able to be myself, and so I left, and it was really scary because my identity had left me as a pro baseball player, and then all of a sudden I had identity again, and then I lost it, and so it was really stressful and difficult. I get a call a month or two later from Major League Baseball asking if I'd be interested in coaching South Africa to be their hitting coach for their Olympic trials. And so I fly out to Johannesburg, and our bat boy was living in the tool shed of our baseball field with his mother and little brother. And South Africa was a really extraordinary experience. I'd never seen real poverty before, and it was an amazing experience. We won the Olympic trials, and we go to the Sydney 2000 Olympics and had one of the biggest upset victories in Olympic baseball history, and got to meet Nelson Mandela and got to march in opening ceremonies. And after the Olympics, what am I going to do after that? And that's when I moved to the desert and met you. So that was back in 2003 when I left for the desert. And I broke up with my girlfriend, got rid of my television, and this is the time before streaming and all that stuff on the phone. I don't even think I had a cell phone. I wanted to live a life of solitude, to figure out what can I devote my life to, something that I can be willing to live and die for. And I just didn't have anything real meaningful that I was pursuing. And so I wanted to find it. And so I had a former teammate, called me and said, will you come down here to help me with he opened up a baseball academy, center field baseball academy in Tucson. And so I came down and decided to help him part-time and live here full-time and live that life of solitude.
What was your mission for living in solitude? Why did you choose that?
It's a good question because I guess a lot of times in my life when I have questions and I'm not sure what to do, what step to take, if there's a fork in the road, I would get away and have some solitude. You know, usually it's only for a weekend or a few days, and that wasn't really helping. I couldn't find enough. I was kind of caught up in the life that I was in, and also I knew as I was a personal trainer and I had a good life, and I knew that if I talked to my friends and family, they would say, well, why would you change anything? Everything was going great. Right. And I knew that I had to get away from the people that were going to say, don't change anything, because I wanted to do something extraordinary with my life, and I knew I had to be alone to figure that out. And so that was kind of what prompted that.
So you had the courage to follow what you knew would be really what you needed, and separated from the people that would tell you, hey, you don't need that, or you need something different. And so what did you discover?
Well, I discovered a lot. I ended up spending 5 years in full-time writing and research to figure out how can an Olympic athlete train for 4 years for an event that may last less than 60 seconds and have peace and confidence in that situation. And I discovered that the heart is the key. I had studied sports psychology. I have my bachelor's is in psychology and master's is in coaching science. And it doesn't really talk about the heart. And so I never really thought too much about it. And when I say your heart, I mean your spirit and the place where your deepest passions are and your greatest fears are. And I realized that the heart is really the control center of our lives, and that the heart really impacts the brain more than the brain impacts the heart. And so some people out there may have heard that we really have kind of three brains. There's the one up here and the one in here and then the one in your gut. Right. And so the most important one is the one in your heart, and we use our mind to train our heart. And so one of the most powerful, important things that I learned is that, well, first of all, I was interviewing sports psychologists and asking them, how can you have this incredible, this poise under the most incredible and intense pressure? How can you do that? And it just brought more questions and answers. That's why I spent 5 years full-time writing and research. One, I found that the heart is the key, and it's not something you learn in sports psychology. And then two, I found out that, I started to think that I want to devote my life to something meaningful. And initially, it was just, I'm going to be a personal coach to pro athletes and teach them how to have peace and confidence under pressure, really focusing on Major League Baseball players. And my first two athletes did amazing. So that's why I thought I'm going to do this for my life. But then I realized that what good is it if I help someone achieve something great, like say they do get the game-winning hit in the bottom of the ninth to win the World Series in Game 7, or strike that guy out to win the game, and yet they don't have a meaningful, fulfilling life. And it's just a fleeting sense of happiness, and inside they have anxiety. And I wanted to do more than that. So I realized that I don't want to just help someone achieve material success. I want to help them do something that's important. And so I started thinking about that as I'm doing the research. And then this extraordinary, I think, for me, revolutionary concept that I learned was that the path to having the most poise and confidence under the most pressure, and the path to having the best possible life is the same path. Beautiful. And that path is a path of the heart. And it's, when I say the best possible life, I mean a life filled with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. A life where you have deep contentment, joy, and confidence, independent of circumstance. I think that's the best possible life. And I think anything that we pursue in this world is just to get that.
So how'd you bring that to sports? So as beautiful as that sounds, we still have to perform, or we have athletes that need to be able to they are kind of where you were when you started the journey. Your identity is in being an athlete, and you show up and say, let's talk about your heart. How does that bridge happen?
Yeah, so I don't really say that because people would probably get up and walk away. The way I do start is I say, first I want to hear what do you want and what's going on, and then we clarify how they want to feel when they're at their very best. So when you're performing your best, what is that like? And so they'll share like, oh yeah, I've been performing terribly, but last year I had this one event. Or 2 years ago, I played amazing, and so they'll tell me about that, and so they'll clarify, okay, usually their mind is pretty clear, their heart is free, and their body is strong, for example.
Right.
And so we get clear on how they want to feel in their lives. And then we get clear on what they really want and the type of person they want to become and what, how they want to live, like how they want to handle adversity. The type of person they want to become is kind of maybe a little bit down the road initially, especially if I only work with someone for a few months, for example. We get really clear on how they want to feel when they're performing, and then I help them learn how to get that feeling more often, what adds to it, what takes away from it.
And how they're in control of it, because that's what's nice about in sports. We can feel like we're in the zone, and then it feels like we don't have any control over how to do that. So are you able to train them on how to really just own that in a way that when they want to pull it up, they can?
Our primary goal every day is the same, is to get better and to learn and grow. That's our main goal. And so what does that mean? So I've worked with a lot of pro golfers. It's been, ironically, my the most clients of any sport have been from PGA Tour. And even though I never watched golf or hardly played it growing up and never even watched the Masters until I got there. And so kind of funny. But that's because I don't teach people how to play their sport. I teach them how to be wholehearted and fully engaged in the moment of mind, body, and spirit, unattached to the results of what they're trying to do. So that's what inner excellence is. How do you go to each moment in your life, especially the pressure-packed moments, and be fully engaged, heart, mind, and body? Which means unattached to what you're trying to do because you can't control it. And when you're attached to what you want but can't control, now we've got stress, anxiety, and fear.
How do we go from anxiety to action?
Anxiety to action. So anxiety is it's a mind that has too many concerns. It's a mind that keeps checking the environment and what about this? What about that? What about this? That's what anxiety is. And what I didn't tell you, part of my story was I had extreme anxiety. This was 2010, about 11 years ago. Extreme anxiety. It felt like someone was holding my head underwater and I couldn't breathe, and I just wanted to breathe.
And how did that show up, or what happened?
Well, I'd spent 5 years in relative isolation, and we're created for relationship. And there's some crucial relationships. There's relationship with God, relationship with self, relationship with your work, relationship with others, relationship with the environment. And when those get out of order, then we get problems. And I was isolated in the desert. And, I wasn't socializing. I didn't have a TV. So it was a really lonely time. And when I came out of that, I didn't go there to write a book. I went there to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Yeah. And then I started to do this research because I wanted to become the best performance coach that I could be. The best in the world is what I wanted to do. And then I wanted to write the best performance book in the world. And then the whole part about realizing of the best possible life and having this life of deep contentment, joy, and confidence, independent of circumstance, that came miraculously after I started getting into the research, and I think God shared that with me. So, but I spent all this time, 5 years of this full-time writing research. I spent my life savings, and then I was $90,000 in debt, and so. Anytime you isolate yourself, and as humans we're created for relationship, it's a little bit dangerous because then you can run into problems like I did with that anxiety. The thing though is it was the best thing for me, for sure. One, I can relate to people that have anxiety now. I understand what they're going through. And also I know that if my whole life falls apart and I feel like I'm going to die homeless on the street like I felt 11 years ago after the book came out, because the book came out in bookstores around the world, and it's in Barnes & Noble, and Canada's major bookstore chain puts it on their recommended reading list for business leadership, and you'd think I'd be excited, but instead I started to panic because I I had no money to hire someone to market the book. I didn't know how to do marketing, and I didn't like talking about myself. So this is not a good marketing plan. And if no one hears about the book, then no one will buy the book. If no one buys the book, then Barnes & Noble pull it off the shelf, and I'll be a major failure. Everyone will know it because I've obsessed about this for 5 years. And then no pro athlete would hire me to coach them, because why would a pro athlete hire a failure to coach them? And then I'm not going to get, then I have to get a regular job. But in 2009, early 2010, that recession, nobody's hiring failures. So that's when I felt like I'm going to die alone in the street. So that was when my life really started to change. And so, I'm really, really grateful for that difficult time that I went through.
So throughout your performance barrier of anxiety showing up, you took some action to end up where you are today. First of all, you really acknowledged your truth about this is what's happening. You now can relate to other people because of the experience that you went through. How did you go from there to where you are today? What's the actions that you took?
The big thing that happened, I'm in Denver, Colorado, February 2010 during the Vancouver Winter Olympics in my hometown, and I'm falling apart. And it's mental breakdown, like about ready to fall to the ground. That's how intense it was, because I was thinking I'm going to end up homeless and die in the street, and everything was kind of coming to a head that one day. I called my friend and said, what do I do? He said, find a homeless person and help him. So I look around the corner, I see this homeless harpist, and I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of them. I'd never seen one before, but he's got this big old harp downtown Denver, and I sit next to him and listen to him play this beautiful music. And I looked at my wallet, and I must have taken out a cash advance because I had $100, and most of my credit cards were maxed out. And so I took all the money out of my wallet, and I put it in his bag, and then I left to go run on the treadmill back where I was staying. And I came back to that same area in downtown Denver a couple hours later, and sitting in the Starbucks and just trying to get through the day, can't work. And the homeless guy walks past me, and he stops in his tracks and says, are you the guy that gave me that money? And I said, yes. And he said, thank you so much for caring for me. No one's cared for me like that before. And he leaves and comes back with a box of chocolates and a bracelet that he had made and a card. He gives all three to me. And when I was writing the book, I asked this girl from our church, can you take a look at this, make sure it lines up with the Bible? I want to make sure this book is not just powerful for athletes and everyone else, but I want to make sure it has deep truths in everything that I'm saying. After 5 years of research, I didn't want it to be have anything wrong in what I'm saying. And she reads it, and she says, I read your book. Have you ever heard of the word Zoe? And I said, no. She said, it's in the Bible a lot. It means absolute fullness of life. I think that's what your book is about. And I said, yes, absolutely. That's exactly what my book is about. My whole life I've obsessed about being this superstar and wanting to hit all these home runs and make millions of dollars and have everybody love me, when I've realized what I've always really wanted was to feel fully alive, to have a meaningful, fulfilling life with extraordinary experiences and deep, enriching relationships where I'm making a difference and learning and growing. And that's what I've always wanted. I just never knew it. And so I started to orient my book around that concept, pursuing fullness of life, and then everything else gets added to you. And then you can come into the moment, whatever you're performing, whatever your job is, you can come into that moment wholehearted, unattached to what you're doing. And so I started to orient my book around that concept. And then now I'm in this intense state of anxiety after the book had come out, and I see this homeless guy, and so he gives me those gifts, and then so I grab my book, and I read his card. He gave me those three things, and one was a card, and it said, thank you so much for caring for me, love, Zoe. His name was Zoe. Oh my God. And so I said, your name is Zoe? And he said, yeah. I said, do you know what your name means? He said, no. I said, it means absolute fullness of life. I've been studying that for 5 years, and I just wrote a book about it. So I grabbed the book and I wrote, Dear Zoe, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful music with me today. You don't know what that meant to me. Love, Jim. And I gave him the book, and I never saw him again. So that was February 2010 during the Vancouver Winter Olympics, when I was falling apart. And that's when my life really started to change.
Because you had faith?
Well, I didn't have much of anything, actually. I believed in God, but at that point I was like so lost. And I think when we're lost, and I've been lost many times in my life, feeling lost, a sense of like, what is happening? What am I doing? What's going on? When you're lost, it's really a loss of identity and forgetting who you are and that you're created for glory. And so yeah, I was so lost. I go back to Vancouver. This is like 6 weeks later, April 1st, 2010, a day I'll never forget. I go to help a friend, and he said, "Let's go to my friend's house." So I go to this friend of a friend's house. I'd never met him before. He's telling me about my life, but I'd never met him, so it was really strange. He said, "You're banging your head against the wall. You're not getting anywhere, and you're always obsessing about some goal." And I was like, "Yeah." And then this other girl in the house walks over to me, hands me a picture of a kite, and says, "What's wrong with this picture that she had drawn?" And I said, "Well, your kite doesn't have a string." And she said, "Yeah, that kite is you. A slight breeze will blow you away." And that's exactly how I felt. So I was like, what is happening? These people know all about my life. So they said, "Can we pray for you?" And my personal philosophy is always accept free prayer. So I was like, sure.
Winning strategy.
Thank you. Yeah. So I said, "Yeah, you can pray for me." And so they prayed for me, and then they said, "You should come to our Bible study tonight." So I did. And that was night, April 1st, 2010. It was not April Fool's. I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, had a million things to do. It all had to be done yesterday. And I had this intense anxiety, and that all came off my shoulders that night. And the words going through my mind were the complete opposite of Denver. It wasn't, "You're going to end up homeless and die alone in the street." It was, God created you with great plans for you, and he loves you so much. There's nothing you've ever done or could ever do would change how much he loves you. And then just this anxiety turned into this incredible peace. It was a shift that I'd never experienced before, and a night that I'll never forget. So then my life really started to change after that. About a year later, a similar thing happens. This total stranger tells me my life's going to completely change. And it was a Skype call from India, and it was a friend of a friend. Again, I'd never met this person, and she said, "God wanted me to tell you a couple things. Everything that you've been going through in your life has been training for you. God's going to bring people from all over the world to work with you. He's going to bless you. It's going to happen soon, and you're going to know it's from God." So very clear and direct. And a couple weeks later, I get I'm sleeping, and I hear this voice that said, "Jim, you ready? Things are going to happen fast." And I assumed it was God because I lived alone. So I was like, "Yes, God, I'm ready." Before I finished my sentence, my alarm goes off. I thought, "Oh, maybe he's serious." And then a couple weeks later, I get a call from a caddy in Dublin, Ireland, Jude O'Reilly. And he said, "I read your book. Can you talk to my boss?" And I was like, "Sure." So I talked to his boss and ended up flying out to Sweden to meet his boss, a golfer. And we start to work together. And his name was Henrik. And then I get a call from Tiger Woods coach, and he says, "I read your book, Sean Foley. Can you talk to one of my clients?" And so I said, "Sure." So I fly out to Thousand Oaks, California, and meet with Sean and his golfer, Hunter Mahan. A month or two after that, I get a call from the CEO of Yum Brands, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, David Novak. He said, "I read your book. I'd like to work with you." In the next year and a half, I went to about 16 or 17 countries, paid off most of that debt. Henrik goes on to win the FedEx Cup a year and a half later. Hunter wins a month or two after we start. Then he wins the World Championship a month or two after that. I've been traveling around the world doing retreats and coaching athletes and executives ever since. And now here I am getting to spend time with you.
Yeah, what a journey. Yeah, and what a gift. And so we met in 2004 when you were doing your research for your book, and reconnected again and really on the same path in terms of serving and supporting athletes, executives, people that really just want to live their best life. And so let's talk about love, because I think it's one of the most powerful components. So how do we use love in a way that is really about opening our heart and also being authentic to just the fears and failures and things that happen when we're that open and vulnerable?
Yeah, so I shared earlier that wholehearted is the goal. Most people have a divided heart, and if you have a divided heart, then it's really hard to be fully engaged, heart, mind, and body in the moment under pressure. Because when you're squeezed with adversity, what's in your heart is going to come out. And so we want to be, when we're squeezed, that what's in our heart is strength and this fearlessness that comes with love. And so, to me, I believe that unconditional love is the most powerful force in the universe. It's the power that holds the stars in place and spins the earth and grows the grass. And it's completely fearless. There's no fear in love. Fear is a self-centered future thing. What's going to happen to me? And my job, my family, my work, my actions, my performance, what will happen to me? That's fear. And love is how can I share? How can I serve? Focus on others in this moment. And so I believe that we're always walking either fear or love or fear. Either you're walking in self-expression or self-protection. Fear is in some form. So if we have a spectrum of fear on one side and love on the other side, then we're always in somewhere in that spectrum. If in the middle there's, you cross over to one side or the other. Self-protection is, what's going to happen to me? I've got to get more for myself. I've got to get more transactions that are in my favor, and I've got to accumulate more. And the love, self-expression is, I have gifts that I've been given to share with the world, which every single person has, and I want to share those gifts, and whatever it takes to share those gifts, whatever sacrifices I have to make to share those gifts.
So for our athletes and people that are listening that really have the gift of performing from a sport perspective, they wrestle with everything. I mean, it's our lives, right? In terms of identity and the things that we've done. How do you recommend, in terms of the people that you work with and just the gift of hope that we're giving people, how do you recommend really playing wholeheartedly?
In order to be wholehearted and perform wholehearted, it's really helpful to understand what you really want most in your life, the type of person you want to become, what's most important to you. And to really think through, well, why do I want to win? So I work with athletes that are some of the best in the world, and so why do I want to win a gold medal, or why do I want to be world number one? We got Tokyo Olympics coming up, and so there's a lot of pressure to perform. And if you don't have something beyond your sport and your work, then it's going to become your identity. And if your identity is on the line for a 5-foot putt to win the gold medal or to win the world championship, that is a lot of stress. Yeah. And so it's really hard to perform when your identity is on the line. So to have something, some pursuit that's greater than your work is I don't know of any other way to really be wholehearted and to have that power. Now, not every Hall of Fame athlete has had some purpose beyond their sport, but I think every athlete that's ever had a meaningful, fulfilling life with contentment, joy, and confidence, independent of circumstances, and been world number one or achieved gold medals has had that. I was at this team event in golf. There's the Ryder Cup, it's the team event, and so I'm at the Ryder Cup, and one of the participants said, "Jim, I'm too attached to the results of my performance. What do I do?" And I said, so imagine there's a kid that has a lollipop and he loves lollipops, and you want to take the lollipop from him. How could you easily do it? And the answer is you give them a bigger lollipop. You trade them. So if you have a bigger lollipop, what kid would not trade their small lollipop for your bigger one, right? Every kid's going to do that. And so it's a no-brainer, right? So you make that switch. And that's what we need, is we need a bigger lollipop than the outcome of our performance. And it's really, it's not that hard logically, is, well, why do I want that gold medal or that world championship or whatever it is? Is it so I can wear the medal to the grocery store? Or am I going to carry the trophy around town and show it to people and just say, this is who I am, look, and now I'm somebody? Is that what we're going to do?
Validation.
Yeah. The reason why people want to achieve is because they want to feel better. They want to have a better life, a better quality of life. And they feel like, if I achieve those things, my life is going to be better. And most people spend most of their lives pursuing approval. And so what I talk to my clients about is don't spend your life chasing numbers or stats or money or success or approval. When you're really created for glory, you're created for so much more than some trophy or having a nice house or a nice car, as nice as those things are.
And so, sounds beautiful. Love the big lollipop idea. How do we do that? There's
a lot of components to it, like I shared earlier, clarifying how you want to feel. But But with Inner Excellence, there's 4 goals that we have every day.
Great.
The main overall goal every day is to get better and to learn and grow. But we have 4 daily goals. The first one is to give 100% of what you have that day. And so there's 3 types of best. And so our number one goal is to give your best shot. And so Frosty Westering, this legendary football coach, when I was interviewing him for the book, shared with me the 3 types of best. One is that to be the best, number one, very rare. Second type of best is to be your best, to have a personal best day, also very rare. And then the third one is to give it your best shot. How often can you do that? Every single day. And so it's really realizing that every day I come to the course or the arena or to the office somewhere between feeling amazing and feeling the opposite of amazing, and recognizing that I can't give what I don't have, and I'm going to just give 100%. If I only got 30 or 40% today, then I'm going to give 100% of that. So that's one, is give your best, and 2 is to be present. Inner Excellence is really an in-depth system to be fully present. And so, and the way we become fully present is we have a mindset. The mindset is I compete to raise the level of excellence in my life, to learn and grow, and in order to share it with others. We have principles, and we have skills and disciplines, all to help us really to be wholehearted, which is a way to be fully engaged, heart, mind, and body, or to be fully present. At the highest level, when you're fully present, or as I say, fully engaged, there's beauty and there's a feeling, a sense that anything is possible. So that's what we want to get to more often. So the second goal is to be present. The third goal is to be grateful, because inner excellence is a way to develop inner strength. And if you're, and I got this from Tim Keller, a guy that we listen to a lot. If your outside circumstances, your outer world is going amazing, but inside you have this fear or anxiety, this weakness, then you're going out to the world in weakness. If your outside world is in chaos and you don't know, what's going to happen tomorrow or even where your next meal is, but you have this inner strength and peace, then you're going out into the world in strength. And that's what I want to help everyone do, is to go out into the world in strength every single day. And gratitude and inner strength and inner peace go together. So the third goal is to be grateful. And you can't have gratitude and fear at the same time.
Or love and fear. Yeah.
Right. And the fourth goal is to focus on your process and your routines and only what you can control. So those are our 4 daily goals every single day. That's what we're trying to do in performance every single day. Another big thing as far as addressing anxiety is our pursuit. Inner excellence is really a pursuit of self-mastery. And when I think of self-mastery, I think of mastering the ego, that part of our mind that's always threatened and always comparing. And it's in Western culture, it's usually comparing and threatened in 5 areas, and that's your possessions, your achievements, your looks, your money, and your status.
Okay.
And mastering the ego is inner strength, inner peace, deep contentment is all part of that. Is mastering the ego, that part that's always threatened and always comparing. And so when I think of mastering the ego, I think of being unembarrassable, unoffendable, and unirritatable. And it's really a selflessness that creates that. When you're walking in love, it's this selflessness, because if you're truly humble, then you can never be humiliated. When you're really embarrassed and humiliated, it's what happened is that your pride got hurt. And so we're really pursuing this self-mastery, mastering the ego.
And how's that going for you? How's your life today in terms of living this beautiful system that you've created? It's a journey that you've been blessed to go on, from your identity as a baseball player to writing a book and becoming an author and a coach to so many great people. Tell us about where you are from your wholehearted life right now. Yeah,
well, I definitely need it more than anybody. My mind constantly going to the past and future, constantly going to results and circumstances, at least in the past. And wanting to get attached to things that I want but can't control. And so it's definitely a daily pursuit. And a lot of people might be thinking, man, you've been doing this for so long, you should be a lot better at it than you are, Jim. And that could be true.
Or not. Welcome to being human, right? The journey of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a daily pursuit. I think it's so helpful to clarify why you're put on this earth. And one easy way to think about it is love is the most powerful force in the universe. It's our great unconditional love is our greatest need and our greatest desire. And if your purpose is to love others and share your gifts with the world, that's about as powerful as you can get. My purpose is to share God's love, wisdom, and courage with athletes and leaders around the world. And so every day I try to remind myself through reminders on my phone. I put it on my walls, my windows. If you were to come to my retreat center that I just sold, the bottom floor, everything was covered with inner excellence principles and my purpose and the type of person that I believe I was created to be. So your environment is super crucial. So it's, and within your environment, that's everything that you're putting into your mind, reading, listening, watching, people that you're spending time with, having mentors and teachers. So definitely I need all that as much as more than anyone.
Don't we all? Yeah. Let's talk about the power of team, who the people are that we surround ourselves with. For our athletes that are playing on a team, they don't get to choose their teammates. And so as powerful as it is to really control your environment, control your controllables, how do you set up a team for success anchored in love, knowing that we all have ego, fears, anxiety? There's a combination happening 24/7 in terms of that internal struggle. How do we set a team up to focus on the power of love?
Well, part of the reason I'm here is because I want to be on your team, and to feel your good energy and to learn from you. I think everyone, it's so important to have that team and to create your own team. You can be playing on playing in the Premier League, soccer or football, playing in the NFL, but really creating your team of not just coaches who can help you with strength and conditioning and coaching your mind and heart like I do, but people that are living the way that you want to live and seeking them out and really saying, I want to live a life more like that person. And then ask them to be a mentor or hire them or whatever it is. But I think that's super crucial because everything that I'm sharing with you and with my clients, as soon as that tape stops running, the whole world says the opposite. And it's 24/7 coming at us. And in the last 2 or 3 years, way more than any time in history. And so if you don't have an intentional system that you're implementing every day, then the world's going to come at you and you're going to get distracted and you're going to get caught up in results and circumstances that you can't control. And then anxiety is going to come in and fear.
So to the person that's where you were many years ago in terms of really living inside the anxiety, what words of wisdom do you have? How do you want to give hope to them?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think of that time, like I said, as a really important time in my life. It was so painful. And in Western culture, we're suffering and pain is like taboo. We're like, that's not, it's the opposite. We're supposed to be successful and have this happiness and joy all the time. And so I think it's really hard in Western culture to have anxiety and fear, largely because of the comparison, constant comparison, and the feeling that I shouldn't have this anxiety and fear. And I think one thing is to recognize that life is very difficult, and there's going to be a lot of difficulties in your life, and to recognize that everyone has it, and especially when you're looking at social media, you're seeing the best part of their life, and recognize that when I'm comparing myself with others, that the potential for anxiety is very high, and you always have the opportunity to focus on what you have and you've been given, or what you want and don't have, and that is makes a huge difference. Like I said, with the gratitude. Focusing on gratitude every day is such an important thing, I think, for anxiety. The way that I coach focusing on gratitude is every single day you want to look for a minimum at the end of the day, minimum of 3 things that you're grateful for. 3 moments, rather, not things. 3 moments. And the smaller the better. And so if you were to say, I'm grateful for my health, that's wonderful, but it's not as near as powerful. To say, I'm grateful for that moment this morning when I got out of bed and I realized that my back wasn't sore.
Yeah.
Very specific moment, because we want to train our subconscious, the part of our mind that runs our lives, and our heart and subconscious work together. We want to train that to see the smaller gifts that we're given all throughout the day. And the more you have in your life, the more resources, like in North America, that we have, the harder it is to be grateful. Because just the more comfortable you get, the harder it is to be uncomfortable. And then you get used to those things. And then so when you start to feel like I might lose it, anxiety comes because you feel like I should have certain things. And when you say, look, I don't deserve anything, and I should, I'm just going to be grateful that I get to live another day and that I have today, and I'm going to see what I can learn. And then of course, giving your life to God, I think that's the ultimate way to have peace and joy.
So, Jim, as great as all of this sounds, there's so many things about life that we aspire for, we train for, we want. And what about freedom? When I say freedom, what comes to mind for you?
So, thanks for asking. So, freedom is something that when I ask people what they really want, and we really get down to it, and say at one of the retreats that I lead, and we start to clarify what they want most in their life and how to get it. Freedom is a very common thing that people want. And freedom is I think is such an important thing for performance, and not just performance, but in our overall lives. To have the freedom to have fun and joy and happiness when you're performing and in your lives, to really enjoy your life, it takes freedom. And so when you're performing, when I think of freedom in performance, I think of performing like you did as a kid, like most people did as a kid, like on
Power
recess,
of play.
Or, going out there to play because you get to play, and you're just going to play like a kid, and be able to do that as an Olympic athlete, for example. Super powerful. But we lose our freedom in this culture because there's so much have to and less get to. And with inner excellence, there's 3 things that are super important, that everything that I coach athletes and executives on, and everyone on, 3 areas, and that's belief, freedom, and focus.
Okay.
BFF, best friends forever. I think belief is the number one thing that limits your performance and your ability to achieve your dreams. And beliefs come from everything that you think, feel, and say, essentially what you feel. So, and then freedom, that ability to play like a kid, and focus, the ability to be fully present, fully engaged in the moment, heart, mind, and body. Freedom to me is really interesting because in the first version of Inner Excellence that I wrote 10 years ago, the very first sentence I wrote is, freedom is costly. Okay. And so what does that mean? Freedom is costly. Well, I compare freedom to 2 different people. Say person A has no real goals, and person B wants to be Olympic champion in Tokyo, say, for example. Well, person A has way more freedom than person B in just about everything that they do. Person A gets to talk about whatever they want, think about whatever they want, hang out with whoever they want, go wherever they want, do whatever they want.
Eat whatever they want.
Eat whatever they want.
Sleep, not sleep. Do it.
Work out, don't work out. Complete freedom, right? Yeah. That's person A. Person B doesn't have the freedom. Not if they're serious about that goal.
That's right.
They don't get to eat whatever they want. They don't get to sleep as much as they want, or they don't get to hang out with whoever they want. They don't get to do pretty much all those things they can't do. Yeah. Because they're trading their freedom for a different freedom. They want the freedom of marching in opening ceremonies in front of a couple 100,000 people, and performing at Olympic Stadium, or maybe a tennis player playing at center court in Wimbledon, right. Or getting on the mound and pitching for a major league team. That's a freedom that person A is not going to have. And so it's what is the freedom that you really want? And if you really want that freedom to play at center court at Wimbledon, for example, then we need to have strict boundaries around what we think about and who we hang out with, and especially around our heart.
And how we really respect and honor that that's our definition of freedom, and it matters to us. So what are we willing to choose to do rather than what are we giving up for it?
Yeah. One of the disciplines of inner excellence, one of the 9 is sacrifice. If you want to achieve any sort of, the book is Train Your Mind for Extraordinary Performance in the Best Possible Life. So if you want to have that best possible life, then you need to sacrifice. And you need to be willing to even suffer and to get comfortable being uncomfortable and to go through things that other people are not willing to do. And I think that's what the greatest people that have had the greatest lives in history and the greatest performers have learned to sacrifice.
And to just really accept the journey of it, feel the pain. Certainly when we connected, both of us were in a place of loss and figuring things out. And the beautiful part is we really created space to understand what that was all about. And it's helped us become who we are today. And I know I wouldn't change any of my journey in terms of the hardship, because it really gave me the opportunity to test that theory of, do I want to live open-heartedly, or do I want to close down and really play from a place of small fear? Or, rather than that great open-heartedness and just the graciousness of it all in terms of gratitude and honor and respect. And so when we think about freedom, what's a way that a person can understand what freedom they want, how they define it, and how they're going to just do what it takes, whether it's sacrifice or overcome fear and anxiety to make sure they can live in that zone of freedom?
It's a very good question. So when I think of freedom with inner excellence, there's 3 things that 3 main obstacles that we have for the best possible life and to perform well under pressure. And the first obstacle is overanalysis.
Okay.
Thinking too much, overthinking. So that's one. Super common. Probably every single performer that's performed at any level has gotten to that point if they've gone past elementary school, overthinking. Overanalyzing, just getting clutter in their mind and then reducing their ability to feel and to just respond and react. And then the second one is judgment or negative thinking. Most people spend most of their lives looking at every circumstance, person, or themselves. And when I say judgment, what I mean by that is to lay down a negative verdict, like being judgmental.
Okay.
It's so predominant in most people's lives that they don't even recognize that that's what they're doing 99% of the time, everywhere that they go. The problem with judgment is it takes you out of your rhythm and your flow and takes you away from your vision. And the third thing is self-consciousness. The concern of what happens if I screw up? What will people think about me? And those are the three, to me, by far the biggest obstacles that we face in performance and in life. And they greatly reduce our freedom.
And our flow, as you said it, in terms of really that rhythm of life. So how do we find a way to get into the rhythm of life, honor our rituals and routines, and still be able to embrace constant change that's happening?
One of the things that I haven't talked about yet really is the willingness to fail. So I want you to imagine this mountain peak. And if you have this big goal, so a lot of people out there have big goals, being athletes and performers. You have a big goal. So you want to get to that top of that mountain, whatever that is, number 1 in your neighborhood or number 1 in the world. You're pursuing this peak. Well, the higher you climb on that peak, the more vulnerable you're going to get. The air gets thinner and more people are watching you and judging you.
Okay.
And if you're not willing to fail in a big way in front of the world, then that peak is probably not for you. And so if you want to perform, say you had a goal, you're at the Olympics and you want to compete against the best in the world and hold your own. So then you have to, if you want to compete against the best, then you have to be willing to fail, because by definition, the best in the world are going to be really good. You're going to lose a lot.
Last time I checked. Yeah.
So you have to be willing to fail. PGA Tour players won multiple times. Craig Stadler said you have to be willing to miss the putt. Brooks Koepka at the U.S. Open said he was willing to hit the ball into the water for the opportunity to hit the ball in the fairway. So the willingness to look foolish, to master your ego, to fail is so crucial in order to pursue being the very best that you can possibly be. And it gives yourself the freedom to not be concerned about what if I fail.
And to go for what really matters rather than thinking about the failure component.
Right. Most people spend most of their times They try something, and when they fail, they shrink back, and they're constant. And by the time you get to be my age, they shrunk back so much that they're like, okay, I just want to live my safe little life. And I've been that way as well, and so I don't want to live that way, because it's a very, very restrictive life. And the biggest problem that I see with that life is the more you shrink back in fear, the more fear you have, because then everything becomes. But every time that you face your fear, and you embrace it, no matter how bad you did, then you become a little bit more fearless and less self-conscious. And the power to do that is to walk in love, the selflessness in love.
Well, Jim, everything we've talked about brings us right back to love, where we started, where we talked about in the middle, and where we finished. And thank you for sharing you and your open heart, your fabulous book, amazing book team, and just your desire to really put love in the world. We need you. Thank you for having the courage and going through everything that you've gone through to really become the amazing guy that you are. And thank you for giving your gift to the world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, team. So go out, and it's up to you now. Be a champion for you. Really face those fears, anchor in being present, and most importantly, get a great support team around you. All the people that are for you. You've got people like Jim and I in the world, and people that are just here to be for you and make sure that you're for you too. So thank you for just having the courage to be you. The world needs you.